what I would do is I would brew those clone recipes and then go buy the beer and to see how close I got. Not necessarily for drinking that beer specifically, but more for getting rid of all the off flavors and making sure my recipe and my process was good.
Welcome to HenHouse Unruffled, an audio companion to the beers of HenHouse Brewing Company. Each episode, we'll take a deeper dive into each beer's concept, recipe, can art, sensory, and more with your hen host, Fridge.
What up? What's up, Unruffled listeners? It's Fridge, your host for the HenHouse Unruffled podcast, and today we are joined by the wonderful owner of Flatland Brewing Company, Andrew Mohsenzadegan, to talk all about our brand new collaborative beer, Tiki Tribute 2: Zombie. This tart IPA is inspired by the famous tiki drink of the same name. We're going to be talking a little bit about the origins of Flatland Brewing Company, the origins of the zombie tiki drink, where tiki culture meets craft beer culture, and a host of other things. So without further ado, let's get it going. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
I'm great. We're brewing right now too, so it's been a busy day, but stoked to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, right in the thick of the action. Brew day in the background. This is perfect for beer podcasts.
How fitting.
So what are we here to talk about today? We're here to talk about our collaboration brew, Tiki Tribute 2: Zombie. Absolutely delicious tart IPA.
A beer over 3 years in the making, or at least between 2 and 3 years?
Yeah, it's been a long time, man. It's been a long time.
Resilience.
Yeah, Colin and I, we talked about making a beer together forever ago. And, it's like with COVID and everything else, we had it booked for our anniversary, which was I think it was year 2 or 3, because we're 6 years old now, so it was a while ago. And, just with everything going on, just life gets busy and crazy, and then COVID happened and kind of put a damper on things. But we made it happen. We did it.
Hey, good things come to those who wait, they say. And I am super into this beer. I know we tried to send you some, and it hasn't arrived yet. Is that the case?
That is certainly the case. We use the same California shipping company that you guys use, and they're wonderful 70% of the time.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I'm sorry that it hadn't arrived, because we are sipping on it over here at the Palace of Barrels, and it is quite something.
Oh, I'm excited to try it. I can't wait for that bad boy to come in because, I think that case is going to go down pretty quick.
Absolutely. So we are interested in hearing a little bit more information about Flatland Brewing. Would you be able to give like a brief history to the listeners?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we just celebrated 6 years back in January.
Congrats.
And I'm a home brewer. Thank you. I'm a home brewer. I'm still a home brewer, just with fancier equipment now, and a couple more people to help me out. So I started brewing back in 2008. I had a roommate at the time who was brewing beer in his house or apartment, and he invited me over, and we were already getting pretty nerdy with some of the German import, like Hefeweizens, and trying to figure out what beer is. And so I went over and helped him out, and then that caught the bug immediately. So I went out the next day, went to more beer. We were living in Concord area, and bought all new equipment, bought all my own stuff, and then brewed pretty much every week for the next 3 years, and we just got addicted. Couldn't make a good beer though. So I took a little time off. I took about 6 months off. I said, screw it, I'm just gonna take a little break, do my research, and moved up to Sacramento area, kind of where I'm at now, Elk Grove, just south of Sacramento. And found a homebrew supply store here, right in the same location that the brewery is in. And definitely made better beer at that point, but better ingredients and easy access and easy knowledge and good knowledge. University of YouTube pretty much taught me everything I needed. And then Frank, who is the owner of the homebrew supply store, said, hey, I want out. If you want in, it's all yours. And so I purchased a homebrew supply store in end of 2015. And we opened in January of 2016. So within 3 weeks of buying a homebrew supply store and converting it into a little dinky 1-barrel brewery, it was terrible, but it worked. And we did it. So now 6 years in, we have all brand new stainless. It's not a huge system, but it's an oversized 10-barrel system. 5 10-barrel tanks, 2 20s, a 10-barrel bright, and that's about it. And we started out doing a lot of funky mixed culture sour stuff, some barrel-aged beers, and then try to keep up with as much clean beer as possible. But on a 1-barrel system, that was nearly impossible. So this 10-barrel system now that we have makes everything a lot easier to keep up with. And then and then we go to HenHouse and I see your guys' system, and I am mind blown because it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's a huge facility. Like, I am mind blown because in my mind, being the home brewer and the nerdy guy that I am, HenHouse has always been a really comfortable brand. It's been something that speaks to me and a lot of my friends, and I never thought it was as big as it really is, which good all around, right? Because it's easy to get the beer. And it's always high quality because you guys, I think, are small enough to be able to handle really detailed finesse stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just a really cool experience going over to you guys and kind of getting that shift in perspective. So then coming back to our brewery, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a 10-barrel baby brew house. It seems so small now, but...
It's crazy. I mean, I even feel like our facility, as the size it is right now, when compared to some other breweries, like, we're the baby, you know? So it's interesting how it can scale like that. And in the time that we've been trying to get this collaboration finished, I mean, we have grown immensely here at HenHouse. From when I started working here, we maybe had like 35 people in the company, and now we're well over 100 at this point.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, again, if it's real growth and organic growth and the demand is there, I think that's the best kind of growth. You know, I see a lot of growth happening almost unnecessarily, and I thought we would be kind of in that boat, but once we sell out of beer, like every time we brew it, that's a good sign. And I like that. I'd rather kind of keep fresh beer out and kind of do what we're doing. And then to go over to your place and hear the same theory and the same focus, I'm like, all right, there's a reason why we hang out and make beer together.
Yeah. I mean, in these modern times, you have to be careful with growth. That's for sure.
Ouch.
Definitely.
Damn.
Yeah.
So with that scale, starting out as small as you did over there, Andrew, like, I imagine when it started out, it was 100% across your own bar. Are you distributing beer these days? Do you get beer out into the world, or people got to come to you to get it?
So back then, yes, everything was sold over the bar top, and it was that way for a very long time. And I felt bad because we had all these emails and Instagram messages, hey, we want your beer, and it was just impossible for us to get it out. One, just based on volume. Two, I was the only guy doing it, right? So I'm like, I have to go package beer and then distribute it. So to me, that was like, I don't have time for that, unfortunately. We don't have the beer quantity. And we were selling every drop over the bar top, so you might as well. So that changed once we started to scale up a little bit. So we went from a 1-barrel to a really weird dairy tank, kind of weird. So 10-barrel mash tun, a 3-barrel kettle. And we would do 3 transfers. So mash in once, go to kettle, boil high gravity, go mid-runnings, boil, knockout, and then low runnings, boil, knockout. So it would take a 14 to 18 hour brew day for 10 barrels. But
wow.
Once we got to 10, it was terrible. I'd get here at 4 a.m. I'd have Mac, our other brewer, come in at like 10, 11. He would take second shift, and then we'd be here until 7 or 8. It was terrible, and I'm glad those days are gone, but
oh my God, dude, are you okay?
Yeah, that sounds very rough.
Yeah. Grain out was 5-gallon buckets at a time into other bins. Grain in was equally as terrible. But we were able to make cool beer off of the system, and we learned a lot by doing it, and learned what not to do, most importantly. But again, we had 10 barrels of beer at that time. So then we could start to get beer out a little bit more, started to get some canning runs with the help of the can van with a mobile canning system.
Hell yeah.
And then, and they're awesome. They do a great job and help us. And so now we're at the point to where we do distribute. We just hired a salesperson officially 2 weeks ago, which has been incredible because now I'm not the only guy going out and selling and delivering beer.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that's been a huge change in my own personal life, just with my mental anxieties of sales and delivery and running a business. We're still self-distro. We do have one small distributor up in Oregon who is phenomenal. We just never really get beer to them because, again, we're kind of based on small quantities at this point. Yeah, and we're working on taking care of Sacramento and San Francisco, South Bay, a little bit near you guys. But again, there's so much competition out there with you and some other stellar breweries that, I'd rather focus on our city specifically because our city, Elk Grove, but Sacramento is very thirsty.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're happy to help get the name out there with this collab. People are really eating it up over here at the tasting rooms.
Oh, that's great to hear. And thank you guys for having us. And, we're, in my mind, we're still really, really small. And in anyone's mind, I mean, we're still really, really small. And so even to be in the presence of you guys, I mean, it's just cool. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. What would you say is your annual barrelage at this this time. How many barrels a year are you guys cranking out?
We are about to hit 1,000. I think that's kind of the sweet spot for us. Last year we did like 890, and that was just with trying to figure out the tank schedules and canning schedules and all that. But now we got it pretty dialed in to where I think 1,000 is our goal this year. If it creeps over to 1,100, I wouldn't be mad. But I really like, our goal is to stay under 1,500. My original goal was to stay under 1,000, and we're like, oh, that's easy now. So I think 1,500 is kind of the new sweet spot for us, to where it's a lot over the bar top, some cans into select places, cans and bottles, and then draft in some select places. And I feel like it's manageable to where it's kind of hard to say, because I mean, my goal is to have my life, my personal life, as well as the business life, as simple as possible. Now, we all know that's impossible, because
it's a lofty goal, but admirable.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was just saying that's a great goal. We all would aspire to a goal such as that.
Right. It's just impossible. So, like, how can we get as close to that as possible? And I think 1,000 barrels is kind of that sweet spot, to where it's enough beer to generate revenue, to pay the people that we have on staff, and then to slightly reinvest as much as we need, as long as our expenses are managed, and just kind of enjoy the pub life. I mean, like we sell beer out to like get people into our tasting room almost,
Right.
It's like a backwards sort of business philosophy.
Yeah, but I actually think that given the number of breweries there are and the fact that they continue to open up, it's a very future-minded business philosophy. I could see the relationship that some breweries in the future will have to retail being similar to some really niche high-end coffee.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Where like you might encounter it out in the world at some fancy espresso bar, but like really it's about retail for those brands.
Yeah.
For those roasters, I should say. And I think that, I'm excited to see breweries like that popping up too, just because like given that scale, I think from our perspective, like there's no way I would go to Elk Grove and not go buy Flatland. Right.
Right.
Like, Bob, you and I ran into Andrew at a similar brewery called Good Wolf, right?
Yes, indeed.
That was my first exposure to that place, and I'm not ever going to go through that town without stopping by there again, because it's the same way you might have that relationship to a cool bar or restaurant, that offers something specific and connected to that area. I think that's a beer future that I would love to live in.
Yeah, and I feel like there's so much great beer out there right now that niche market is definitely happening, more so than it ever has. I feel like Oregon has figured that out pretty well. San Diego's figured that out pretty well. But that gap in between, kind of where we are, I don't know if it's really hit yet. And I feel like it's starting to mold now, which is great. Like the Good Wolf, man, that was such a cool experience. And like you said, I'll never drive through there and not stop there. That's just silly. Like great beer, super cool vibe, great people. It just makes sense. And so, if we can focus on breweries like that, with the coming future, I think that's how specifically we're going to survive, because we rely very heavily on our loyals, our people that are based down the street, that live down the street, your kids go to school in this city. They're the ones that keep our lights on, and they're the guys that we're trying to keep happy.
And so how does that get reflected in what you brew?
Well, so I'm still selfish, and I'm a homebrewer, and I like to brew what I like to brew. So hopefully we find people that have similar minds to what we like. We're brewing a lot of weird stuff right now. So we just did a beer. It's like neon green in color, has a little bit of glitter to it, pear, banana, peach, vanilla. So it's like a smoothie sour with neon green color, and it's just like
I'm here
all
for
these
it.
Cool flavors and everything else. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here for that beer. That sounds great. What's it called?
It was Keep Beer Weird. I mean, it's
yeah.
We made it with Great Notion out of Portland, Oregon, and just a good experience, and the beer turned out phenomenal, and we're stoked on that. But side by side, on the contrary to that, we have a Dortmunder export, like a German lager that's really clean and snappy with some mineral-focused water profile and a little bit of malt, so it's not too Pilsner-like. And I feel like a lot of the people I hear that work hard, that's the beer they go to. Like they just love it.
Now we're talking. I love traditional lager action going on for sure.
So and that's another thing we've seen up here is lager. Lager's taken off, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
To dig down more deep into that, I guess I'm also interested in, I kind of expect the like all over the board stylistic thing and like the home brewer ethos actually making a lot of sense at that scale. Like, do you have core brands? How often do you repeat a brew? Do you have customers who come in looking for the same thing, or do you have customers who come in looking for an adventure?
All of it. So we don't necessarily have core brands, as much as I would love to. I think the market's shifting back that direction, which is nice. But we started out the gate with the rotating nation, like the whole, like, let's focus on new beer, creativity. And I think it's really fun to brew that way. A little more difficult to nail down consistency and to see what the system really wants to do. So we're starting to figure out certain recipes that work really well in tune. So like our West Coast IPA, West Coast single, like we'll change the grains every now and then, maybe like a different malt supplier or, producer. But 99% of the time, it's the same grain bill. And then we get experimental with the hops. And we like our West Coast IPAs super clean, snappy, dry, pretty much Pilsner malts only, maybe a little bit of wheat. Yeah, and then we do have some beers that come back every now and then. And so we're starting to see a little bit of that. We've done over 400 different beers in the last 6 years. And so it's just about time to remake some of them because we found ones that really, really work well. And we're about to release one. It was one beer called Tried and True. We've actually done that beer 5 times. And it's just a super clean, snappy West Coast double. The holy trinity of hops, citrus, and mosaic.
Yeah.
Fundamentally simple, but we complicate it on the back end as much as we can to see how much hop oil we can squeeze into this thing. And every batch has been different, but it's sharing the same name with Sim hops, so we kind of feel like it's doing itself a favor by earning its own name. But yeah, we do get some people in that are like, oh, I had Tried and True last time, where to go? Or, like, what do you have like that? And it's a great opportunity for us, bar staff, and whoever else is around to have a conversation, to educate as much as we can without being, like look at me sort of person. And I think it's cool to open people's eyes a little bit to new flavor. Say, oh, here's Citra Mosaic Strata, your brand new hop. If you like Tried and True, you're going to love this beer. Now, what we've seen recently is that they'll get 1 or 2 of those and they want their old beer that they're familiar with back again. And so we're, again, revisiting some of these really fun beers that worked really well soon enough.
That's awesome, man.
How did the conversation between you and Colin about cocktails begin?
That's a great question. Where did he even start? I think we're both cocktail people. I know I'm a cocktail person. I love tiki drinks. There's a couple cool bars up here that do really good tiki drinks. And we've been making tiki-inspired sours for a little while. And I think it was just a natural direction. I feel like there's so much creativity. So it's like, in my mind, it's like a Saison, right? Saison is a style with no parameters, right? It's like, has its base core, should be maybe in this realm, but it could also be in other things. Tiki drinks are kind of in that same thing, to where you can make a tiki drink, as long as it's focused and you put your detail onto it, it can be phenomenal with kind of random ingredients. And that's what I like about it, is it's just exploratory. And so I don't even know how the conversation came up, but it ended up being like, hey, let's just make some tiki sours and go from there. Because that was years ago. So on our side, we did a beer called Malibu Sea Breeze, Dom Peas, and Palm Trees, which is a Biggie lyric. Don't come at me, Biggie. I'm sorry. Or the record label, whoever. And it was a painkiller-inspired sour beer with a ton of coconuts, a little bit of orange, a little bit of nutmeg, some pineapple juice, on a clean sour base. And then, of course, you guys, did something that I thought was a really cool interpretation of a tiki-style sour, and using hops only and no fruit in the beer, which I freaking love that idea.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how people receive it, I'm drinking it right now, and it's really growing on me, and it definitely has those flavors, but I do, like you mentioned Great Notion earlier, and I think they're probably, more than any brewery I'm aware of, associated with the naming the beer something that creates an expectation in the drinker and then delivering on it. And that's actually success. That's like the whole cycle of the drinker experience, is like, does this really smell like blueberry pancakes? Holy shit, it does. And they're like thrilled, right? And so I wonder, with this beer being called Zombie, if people are like going in really looking for is this smell exactly? Does this have the texture exactly of a tiki drink? I don't know if it's there, but it does hint at, or more than hint at, it does include, I think, all the flavors you would want. And it does have the vanilla and the spices in there too. But for those of us who haven't yet completely moved over to that side of I guess that's the more the beer is entertainment side of the spectrum, beer is a magic trick side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It also is just, if you were just like, hey, this is a tart spiced IPA, try it, I'd be like, oh, it's pretty good. You know, it's almost impossible to keep our brewers from trying to straddle a fence.
Right.
They just are. There's so much classicist in that brew house that they'll be like, I can do that and I can make it so Brian Hunt will like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if there's one guy to impress, he's the guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a serious apprehension of use of lactose milk sugar and fruit puree in general, and we've finally gotten over those hills in production.
Yeah, it's just a giant, always a tug of war between marketing and production, and this beer is firmly the tug of war has not been won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A brewer's beer. I feel like that's so cool, though, right? That we can have opportunities like this to where you don't, of course, you're always worried about sales, like, oh, is this beer going to sell well, whatever else. But collaborations are a great opportunity to get weird and try things out you've been wanting to try. In my mind, it's okay. I know this beer did not fail, because that's definitely not the case, because I know you guys you're not going to allow that to happen. But it's okay to miss the mark a little bit on a collab, because you went all in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you literally threw it all in to see what could happen, and it's the best opportunity to do that.
I think that you can learn lessons that then get applied from there too. I cannot wait for you to taste this beer, particularly given the amount you've brewed things like this, and kind of the homebrewer ethos, which is one of the things that I think is most valuable about the homebrewer ethos is the taste and iterate, because you're brewing so little beer at a time. And that actually be an interesting question when you were talking about core brands. Did you have core recipes as a home brewer? Did you go into every batch? Were you I'm going to make it exactly like this with one small tweak? Or were you every time I'm going to start with a blank canvas and paint something new?
Yeah, it was kind of a blank canvas every time.
Yeah.
So when I was I'll say this. So when I was home brewing, because I had so many issues initially, I would listen to a lot of Brewing Network and the Jamil Show and, Brewing with Style. And then they would come up with, can you brew it? And they would clone beers, right? And what I would do is I would brew those clone recipes and then go buy the beer and to see how close I got. Not necessarily for drinking that beer specifically, but more for getting rid of all the off flavors and making sure my recipe and my process was good. So it's just an easy way without a caliber, a great caliber judge to tell me what I was doing wrong, for me to find out what I was doing wrong. So I learned a lot from that. But when we opened the brewery, man, it was all just let's just figure it out. I know what works. I definitely know what doesn't. Let's just start from scratch and see what happens.
I like what you were saying there about using clone beers to sort of identify where you might have some shortfalls in your brewing system. Me and my brewing friend, when we were doing home brewing efforts, we would always brew local recipes from bigger breweries around Sonoma County and compare it to the actual beer just to see what the difference was. And we always found that really interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely an eye-opening experience. Obviously there's going to be a world of difference just from homebrew equipment to commercial equipment. But if you can get close, man, that's a cool little pat on the back. It's oh, look, I did that on my little 5-gallon system. So just an easy way to kind of to make sure you're heading in the right direction, I guess.
Yeah.
The funny thing about the can you brew it thing, or tasting a beer and trying to clone it, is that's actually the history of this cocktail.
Really?
The reason there's so many ridiculous zombie recipes and they don't seem to have anything to do with each other is that Don the Beachcomber kept it a secret.
Oh.
The zombie was super famous, and so everybody needed a zombie, and he wouldn't tell them what was in it for a long time.
So folks were trying to reverse engineer.
So there's a ton, the first zombie recipe that's published is Trader Vic's, which is not Don the Beachcomber,
right?
And Don the Beachcomber didn't tell him what was in it, so people were tasting it, trying to replicate it. If you were going to be a tiki bar during the tiki craze, you had to have a zombie.
Yeah,
but the original recipe wasn't published, and so it was a bunch of people tasting and adjusting, And probably back then, you couldn't go to a store and buy a bottled zombie, so tasting and adjusting from stories people were telling.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
How crazy is that? How fun.
Yeah.
And how cool to be that revolutionary, to come up with a cocktail that everybody wants, right? That's kind of our jobs, I think, as what we do as brewers and storytellers is let's create something that people want all over the world and they try to mimic it. That's so cool. That's why I got into this industry.
Yeah, that is super duper cool. And I like that you've done other tiki-inspired beers, because when I go to a tiki bar, something that I found out that I was interested in after a trip to the Great American Beer Festival, actually, we went up to Denver, and there was this tiki bar called Adrift we all went to after one of the sessions at GABF. And from then on, back in 2018, I've just loved tiki bars. So every time I go there, I drink a painkiller. And I heard you had a beer based on one of those. So that's awesome.
We did. That's what Malibu Sea Breeze, Dawn Breeze, and Palm Trees was about.
Oh,
yeah, that's what we did together.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it turned out great. It's what's funny is that we've been using an experimental GMO yeast that produces lactic acid. So we're not only creating clean fermentation through the process, but we're also producing this lactic acid. So it's like a clean sour almost. So the canning line freaking loves it because they don't have to worry about lactobacillus or anything else coming in their lines. But we've learned, and the beer that we did together on our side was a good experiment, that the lower mash temps, the simpler sugars, the more acid that thing provides. Mm-hmm. And so since that beer, we've been learning, like, all right, let's mash in a little higher. Let's create more dextrinous wort, a little lower fermentability, have that back end sweetness work with the front end kind of like pop that the acid does provide. And depending on the ingredients that we add, I mean, it can really work well.
And
I figure that painkiller recipe turned out pretty cool.
Nice. And we're talking about sour Vissier, is that right?
You said it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. No, we love that stuff, man.
You're supposed to keep it a secret, like Don the Beachcomber.
Yeah. It requires a ton of yeast. You have to pitch the hell out of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that's so counterintuitive to that yeast produces more acidity when it's happy and not stressed.
Yeah,
which is the opposite of the history of making beer sour, right?
You think on most other yeasts it'd be more acid based on stress, or more ester based on stress. But yeah, this is kind of the opposite.
Interesting.
Anecdotally, of course.
Yeah. No, that's it. So maybe when we get we've joked about the BA pastry stout book. Maybe Andrew will write the BA tiki sour book.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. I don't know if I'm the guy, but I'll give it a go.
At least a chapter.
Yeah, Lalamon's got some money.
Yeah,
they can make that up.
I'll do that. Yeah, it'll be one paragraph.
I'm curious, when you made this is kind of off topic, but I just before I forget, when you made that Keep Beer Weird slushy style beer, did you make it like extremely viscous, or like what was your approach there from a brewer standpoint?
Yeah, so we did, and that's the biggest reason why we used banana and pear. The flavors are pretty subtle on both of those fruits, but they add a ton of texture.
Yeah.
And so, and for us, I mean, depending on the beer we're trying to do, we're adding some fruit through fermentation. Most of it, almost all of it nowadays, just toward the end of fermentation, if not like at terminal. And that's what we did with this last beer. We just added everything at terminal. So the beer was totally finished. It got pretty dry, and then we added all the fruit to kind of back sweeten it. And then, and just let it rip. And it added quite a bit of texture. It was really, really thick and viscous. And it's crazy to see where the market has gone. I'm glad you guys kind of put your foot down and said, hey, we're going to not do that right now. Because it's in everything. I mean, you can add fruit to an IPA. As long as it's thick, people are going to love it, you know? And stouts, same thing. It's like, just add thickness, add viscosity. It doesn't matter what it takes to get it there. People just want thick, thick, thick. That's why we like lagers, though, right? We brew lagers to be on the other side of all that.
Like best case scenario with the focus kind of on thickness, as you're putting it, Andrew, right now would be that we start talking about beer texture, right? Like we've talked so much about aroma. We talk a little bit about flavor, and like go drink a Hefeweizen in Southern Bavaria. Like what will bowl you over is the texture. The first time I really got hazy IPA was, I think it might have been like a Fiddlehead, if that's their name. Somebody brought one of those cans back, and I'd had Heady and I'd had the other things by then. And it was just like, oh shit, like this is actually just has so much more palate weight, but still has a finish and cleans up after itself. Like, I think a lot of the major moments in shifts in beer, like people just completely changing what they thought was acceptable in beer, are actually like related to how it feels in your mouth.
Yeah.
You know, like bitterness is part of that too. And that was obviously something that catapulted craft beer forward, was like excessive bitterness. Yeah. So I hope that, you know, we sell the 450 North beers out here sometimes, right? Like we understand there is a broad spectrum of potential beer texture, and I'd love it if that becomes kind of like another axis that people start to talk about beer on. Okay, like I know how like intense the aroma is. I know how intense the flavor is. Like, what are we talking about in terms of texture?
Yeah, I also feel like that really plays into, like, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a lot more like astringency in beers too. Like, you want a drier beer in general, at least from what I was like exposed to when I first started drinking. Like, they were freaking sweet as hell, high ABV. bitter as hell, and now there's a little bit more of a nuance, and dry beers is like the good base to build on,
Yeah, dry stuff
totally.
is great.
Crystal malt. I mean, that's kind of changed a lot in the last 5 years. I think, if you see crystal malt in IPA, it's way more focused than it ever has been. And I feel like that's going back because we don't have the IBUs we used to have. So you don't need as much back sweetness as you used to. So I think it all kind of works together. And man, if we can find texture-driven people that want like a good, clean Pilsner, but still has texture, I think that's really cool. That's what I like, because you get polyphenol texture out of it. You get a little bit of that grainy, like you were saying, that stringency, but in a pleasant way. You get that sort of mouthfeel from the grain. I feel like if we can find that demographic, or at least head that direction, it's going to be better for everybody.
I mean, every side pour faucet is arguing that demographic exists, Andrew.
That's a great point. I forgot about that side pouring. God, I love those.
Yeah, right? Like, and 100%. I think that's twofold. Like, I hope that some people are really appreciating, like, damn, this has some texture now, but it's a bone dry see-through beer. What's going on here? And I think there's, bringing it back to Tiki, I think there's a fair amount of bartender theater going on with those side pour faucets too.
Absolutely.
Right? It's experiential to have your beer poured that way and be made to wait for it and watch the head build, and when it comes, it sticks way up out of the glass the way the ice does on a tiki drink, right?
Yep.
So I think that's another place where they cross over, and I think that's like particularly with breweries the scale of Flatland, considering all those aspects of the experience, and I think even for breweries as large as us and bigger, neglecting to think about that, we do it at our peril.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, the same way we want to see beer quality through to the empty glass, you want to make sure you're in touch with how people are experiencing your beer and relating to your beer through to the very end. And that's like, everything from can art to these sort of like, the most obvious ones are like pouring a 450 North beer, right? It's like, holy shit.
But even the more like subtle things like adjusting the volumes of CO2 in your beer to totally mess with the texture,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we're still at the mercy of not owning our own canning line. So we, it almost ends at 2.5 in the can at the end of every day. But we mess with our carb quite a bit to see, on lagers, we want them a little higher. On hazies, compared to West Coast, we want it a little bit lower, have that softer, creamier mouthfeel. I mean, it's fun to be a brewer right now. There's the technology and just the knowledge alone is grand. You can literally do anything right now, and there's a consumer out there willing to try it.
Yeah, and I think everybody's looking for meaningful points of differentiation too, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
I think that what made me excited about this project was, like, pretty early on in the pandemic, a ton of my, I come from the restaurant industry. A ton of my friends have some fluency with flavor. A lot of them used to bartend, and everybody became like an at-home mixologist when all the bars got closed, right? And, reading through some of those cocktail books and stuff, like how much they were considering the entire thing, right? Like, the same way that, when you're preparing a dish in a restaurant, you might do something different in terms of your technique so that it looks a certain way when it hits the plate, right? Like these tons of considerations, because it was all part of the experience that you were selling, right? Like, and I think that, I hope as people realize, like, very few breweries are going to be okay if people don't come through the brewery doors and buy beer directly from them. You better be thinking about every aspect of that guest experience and making it exciting and entertaining.
100%. And I feel like so many people take it for granted right now. It's like, oh, we're just busy, which is great. But that may not always be the case. So make sure the people that are coming in, like you said, are happy and enjoying themselves and will tell the story to their friends, right? Because you want that word of mouth marketing more than anything else, because I feel like that means way more. Especially if they really enjoyed themselves, they're going to spread the word.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it takes a lot of training and a lot of hours and focus and, thought behind what you're saying. You're not just saying words to people. You got to think about it. And I feel like, again, now's a good time to do it. The consumers are willing to spend money at your place to go out and try something new, and you have an opportunity to grab them. Not physically. That'd be weird.
right. Not actually. But building in that sort of word of mouth marketing into the game plan sort of reflects a little bit of like tiki culture in general, and it's kind of something that we also see in the craft beer world. Like, you're keeping it fun and entertaining, so folks will then go out and retell their story to their friends, and that's what's beautiful about it.
Yeah, and you think about a lot of tiki bars, like they're kind of secret, right? They're usually hidden.
True.
Well, the cool ones are like hidden behind another bar. like a little speakeasy sort of thing. I'm like, all right, so you gotta be in the know to know. So yeah, it's kind of the same thing. It's like if you find out from your friend, oh, you gotta check this place out, like, oh, now you're in the know. You kind of work your way in, and I just feel like it means more that way. I don't want to say you're biased, but you're expecting a little bit of something when you get a reference from word of mouth versus reading a magazine article or something like that. That might work, but you always know there's a little bit of bias there. At least you know your friend's bias, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and particularly like the password to get in, little bit of the culture, and then but then also like once you're in there, it's not a fucking library, man. It's like we're setting shit on fire.
Dropping a big statue with dry ice in the center. You better know not to drink the dry ice.
Man, the fire
there's some rules
stuff,
you got to know, right?
Right. The fire stuff those tiki folks do make me real nervous as an old bar manager. And I love it. Like I was just throwing money at them because I was like, wow, I'm super entertained. They're risking their lives.
Yeah.
I better tip really hard for this. This is way more than just like $1 a pint. Yeah, it was so worth it. But
and
scary.
It's so fun to contrast that with like when I came up in like hip bars, it was really like twirly mustache corner, like, act like the bartender is some kind of like a fucking Proust scholar.
Right.
Right. And like and then it's like, dude, we're making drinks, man.
Yeah.
Like, and then what I love about Tiki is that it's, in spite of the fact that like to be very good at it, you probably need to know how to differentiate between like 1,000 varieties of rum. Mm-hmm. But you also need to be able to like, you're a little bit like an acrobat on a tightrope, right? You're like putting on a show for people.
Yeah.
It was very performative.
Right. As opposed to like, you're very lucky to have that seat at my bar.
Right.
Yeah, but when the pyrotechnics come out, maybe just, tuck the beard away in the sweater or
I love it. Yeah, it's just fun to go out, and that's an experience-based thing, right? The drink is going to be great, you know that. But what about the experience? And I feel like that's where it all is. If you can walk into some places, have a hell of a time just based on experience alone, and then everything else is good. Man, that's going to be a story to tell.
So do you see, like, thinking about Elk Grove and Sacramento and thinking about being primarily retail based, how much do you consider your scene that goes beyond beer, right? Like we all know, like Sacramento's got a thriving beer scene, lots of breweries, lots of beer drinkers, but talking about that experiential piece, like, do you see yourself as either aligned with or competing with cocktail bars, restaurants, stuff like that? Or are you like mostly like, no, there's the people who go to brewery tasting rooms and that's who we roll with? Or are you trying to be like, we just want the people in this area who want to go out on a Friday night and show them a good time?
All of it. We definitely have the beer consumer because we've always made nerdy beer, and nerdy beer in the best way for like the beer nerds, from homebrewers to, beer judges, whatever else. We've always had that demographic, which is great for feedback. But then we definitely, a lot of Elk Grove, I don't want to say a lot, half of Elk Grove is probably very inexperienced with craft beer, and so we have a brand new market of opportunity right there, as long as we market properly. And again, the storytelling, as long as they come in and tell their friends we're good. But yeah, I feel like there's also, Elk Grove, there's not a whole lot to do for nightlife, like going out and getting drinks. But Sacramento is 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away. And so there's unlimited opportunities out there. And so we definitely have to compete a little bit. And I think we do that with weird beer, cocktail-inspired beer, or smoothie sours, or some ways that we can put some sort of culinary twist on it, but also atmosphere. I feel like a warehouse, which we're in a warehouse 100%, but it looks different when you walk in. We changed the vibe up quite a bit. But I feel like that standard warehouse tasting room thing is kind of fading out a little bit. And you're starting to see a lot more of focus on ambiance and proper lighting and vibe and feel, almost like a cocktail bar. Like they've had that figured out for a long time.
Right.
And breweries are now stepping in that direction, which I think is also really cool to see, because not only you're expecting really cool beer, you're expecting a cool experience when you go into a place now. Yeah. I feel like we're right there. It's like we're going through a remodel right now, and I think when it's finished, it's going to be sexy, and we're going to be competing with some cool cocktail bars and stuff like that. Not necessarily like I want to compete with them, because they'll always get my money. That's where I'm going to go if I'm thirsty, right? I'm going to go to a cocktail bar. Rarely will I go to a brewery thinking like, I'm just going to have a cool experience. I go there for a beer because I'm a beer nerd, and I go to a cocktail bar for an experience. So I'm a weird consumer, but.
No, that is really great differentiation. I totally agree with that. I have had beers in breweries. We're talking many, many years ago now, but I'm like, this is so cool. We're in a warehouse with no air conditioning, and our table is a cable spool. And then 10 feet away, those folks are making the beer. Like, this is great. I think now, I mean, I've aged, but I think people are looking for chairs and tables in 2022, and we're not going to
even a cushion on that chair, not just a steel chair.
Yeah, I'm actually sitting on a cushionless steel chair right now, and I'm dreaming of a cushion. But that really is it. Like that kind of, I think we as an industry will not be able to get by on just raw authenticity anymore. Like, people want chairs. Everybody write that down.
Yeah.
If you're starting a business, chairs.
First things first.
Climate control, maybe.
Do you have chairs in your business plan?
Yeah. Some chairs and some air conditioning and some heating in the wintertime would be nice.
Yeah. You know what's funny about all this is that we were raw. We were rustic. We had none of that. We had steel chairs, picnic tables. But yeah, we've grown up a little bit. And maybe because I've gotten older too, you know, it's like my back hurts, my feet hurt. I want to sit down, some comfy.
I think that's part of it too.
Now we have nice chairs and we have fans and heaters, and we're getting AC like pretty much in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, man, it's like it all makes a big, big difference.
Yeah,
well, and I think there's a piece to that too. Of everybody right now is fond of being like beers for everyone, beers for everybody. Everyone's welcome. And when you don't think about the accessibility and comfort of your space. Mm-hmm. You're implicitly saying the opposite, right? You're at least saying you didn't consider that, right? Because what you're saying is you need to be willing to go the extra mile for how cool this beer is,
right?
And that is a self-selecting portion of the population.
Yeah.
And I don't have the data in front of me, but I assume that self-selecting portion of the population looks a certain way and fits certain demographics in terms of ethnicity and income.
Yep.
Right. And if you're we really do think if 100% of the population tried this across every demographic, we'd get 75% of them because this shit is dope.
Right.
If you believe that, then you have to remove those other barriers. And those can take the form of it sounds shitty in here.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of research about neuroatypical folks having really hard times with odd sounding spaces or cavernous spaces, right?
Yeah.
And that's just one of many, many examples of the kind of signals that like Andrew said here, I was a homebrewer, man. I got in this because I made a really fucking cool beer and I wanted to do more of it.
Yeah.
But then the minute you start opening yourself up to a hospitality side, you're kind of, I think, making it incumbent upon yourself to consider all of that stuff. And it's it's a lot to consider.
It's one thing to invite people to the table, but it's another thing to accommodate their needs around the table, right?
Right.
And that's what it's all about. It is hospitality through and through. If the beer is for everyone, make the space accessible to everyone.
Totally.
Yeah, and we don't want to make beer for one demographic because that's just silly, right? We don't know what they want. We don't know what I want.
Right.
Let's just make beer, really cool beer. But like you said, the space, man, that is what's going to get people in there. And if they like the beer, they're going to like the beer. It's that's what it is. But yeah, comfy seats.
Yeah.
Most importantly.
Fireplaces, couches, rugs even, you can cover the floor.
A rug. Okay, that's a bridge too far. I think.
I was in craft beer in the aughts, man. I spent my life on painted concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't even have the
yeah, it's the little details, you don't have to go too far or too hard with it, but just focus on what you're doing and think about it. The same thing with the conversation going behind the bar. Think about what you're saying. Don't just say stuff, and don't assume. That's what we've learned a lot. Never assume.
Yeah.
100%. Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, Andrew, man, we can't thank you enough for spending the time with us. We definitely want to encourage everybody who listens to this to, anytime you're in the Sacramento area, jaunt out to Elk Grove. Go see Andrew and his team at Flatland. Anything else you got to plug? What's going on? What can we expect from you soon?
Oh, gosh. Well, we have a Pink Boot hot beer that is just about to be released on the 8th for International Women's Day. Speaking of making beer for a specific demographic. But it's a bitter West Coast IPA, so...
Nice.
Breaking the stereotypes. We don't really have anything specific. Just go to our website, check out our Instagram. We ship beer all across California. Yeah, and then just come support and focus on small breweries. Support HenHouse.
Absolutely. Well, we actually have a Women's Day beer. Is that International Women's Day? Well actually comes out for?
Yeah, Well actually is coming out this week, and International Women's Day is next Tuesday.
All right.
We are always brewing that beer up once a year with the Pink Boot Society, a wonderful coalition of women brewers and industry folk.
Well, I'm saying we should get a little swap going here.
Yeah, we should.
You canning that thing, Andrew?
Yeah, we're going to be canning it Wednesday.
All right.
So, yeah, we'll send some to you for sure.
Cool.
Okay, yeah. You know how it is with our delivery service. We're going to send it, whether or not it'll arrive on time or in one piece. That's another story.
I mean, it's Women's History Month. We can enjoy it, in a couple of weeks.
Within the month.
Yeah, within the month.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's the effort that counts, right?
Yeah.
Word. And then I'm going to get you while you're on the spot here. We are on the verge of announcing Freshtival 2022. Flatland is exactly the sort of brewery we would love to have with us on the 25th of June here in Sonoma County. Only requirement is the kegs you're pouring from got to be filled less than 7 days prior to the event.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, count us in for sure. We can make that happen.
Hell
Mark it down. It's on the record. It's recorded.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a legally binding podcast.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks so much for coming
thank you guys. You
on
guys are
today.
awesome. I appreciate, again, everything from the brew day to just about everything in between. And, of course, now this is kind of icing on the cake. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. Keep up the good work. And, let me know what you think about that Pink Boot beer when I send it to you.
Absolutely, man.
And if you ever do receive the case of Tiki Tribute 2 :Zombie, we'd love to know what you think.
Also, if it arrives in a poor state, let me know, or let Sayre know, and I'll send you some, hopefully, one-day delivered fresher stuff.
Maybe we just drive out there and drink some beer, huh?
It could be in the cards here.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, it's not that far away.
I hear you have seats, so.
Some comfy seats. Yeah, they're not terrible.
All right. Hey, thanks again, Andrew. Have a great rest of your evening, bud.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
The nose on this is really, really remarkable. I wasn't getting these great smells when I first had some on draft. Maybe it's warmed up slightly, and that's what's making it more expressive. But oh my God, this smells just like a tiki drink. You're not gonna hear me say this smells exactly like a zombie because I've had a lot of zombies that have smelled a lot of different ways. But it just captured it all. I think it's because we're using actual spices in there: the star anise, the cinnamon, the vanilla. Gosh, they all come through on the nose so well, and I'm super impressed with the work that our team's done.
Yeah.
Weird thing to say. I think we make the best beers with cinnamon in them ever.
I will co-sign that.
I haven't had too many beers with cinnamon in them. I've had some gross beers with cinnamon in them. Kiki Riki in this.
Yeah, I was going to say there was some in that Concha beer.
Yeah, there was a lot. And it was expensive-ass Ceylon cinnamon.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things where people think of cinnamon as cinnamon sugar or Cinnabon or
Right.
And so like when you put that on a label, people are expecting like this incredibly intense set of flavors. But
Drinking
in the
Red Hots.
cocktail world and in the culinary world, cinnamon is in a bunch of savory recipes.
Yeah.
And it can be very complimentary. And so I'm really appreciating that in here.
Until, of course, we make our no harm cinnamon bun one day,
Get it right, Fridge. No cinnamon buns.
cinnamon bar.
In the making of this pastry stout.
In the making of the pastry stout.
And I think you'd have to annotate the cinnamon bun, so know where the cinnamon bun's from.
Right.
We're harmed in the making of this pastry stout.
There you go.
No frosted.
Just to make it a
cream
little bit
cheese
more
frosting cinnamon buns.
It wasn't
Yeah.
complicated enough already.
Well, it's all
Yeah.
it's all to aggravate Nick Morera, who has to like when we enter a beer into the NetSuite, the system that runs our entire company. When you're making a new beer, you have to enter the name like a dozen times. So the more words we can put on that line, the more angry Nick Morera will be at me.
Or the more name changes we throw at him in general for a beer. Sometimes could be named 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
The name changes rarely come from this department, Fridge. They're often imposed upon us.
That's true. Looking at you, overlords.
But back to a beer whose name did change in its process.
Yeah.
Tiki Tribute 2, :Zombie. We haven't yet mentioned the hops in this beer, which that's one thing that I would say is extraordinary. The combination of Sour Vissier and Motueka and Sabro delivering a bunch of lime. Like a bunch of key lime, like real fidelity to the lime is pretty impressive.
Fidelity to the lime hitherto undreamt of.
Yeah. And even the old grandpa hop Northern Brewer gets to hang out with all the cool kids.
Yeah, I
this
think
is
that
like
was
Slick Rick doing a jam with Amigos or something. I love it.
sign me up for that shit.
I'd watch that.
Art of Storytelling Part 3, is that what that was? Was quite the song when he popped back up with Outkast, although that was 20 years ago. But I think the Northern Brewer is supposed to reference the mint,
Yes, it definitely is.
which
Yeah.
That's one for those of us who've read lots of tasting notes on hops.
Right?
I don't know that there's
Also,
mint
just
leaping
use
out of the
real
glass here.
mint, you cowards. No, I'm just kidding.
Shots fired.
Also, yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a couple minty beers, none that I've had 12 ounces of, but I've tasted them. But,
Someone's going to get it right.
I'm very impressed with production. I think maybe it's the people on our payroll in Bellevue who are going to get this mint thing right.
Yeah,
I'll be advocating
Where's
for
my
that.
junior mint stout?
I have complete faith in the production team in being able to pull off a delicious mint stout.
Yeah.
We have
They'd
a
be
Girl
the first.
Yeah.
It's true.
And why not?
We have the Girl Scout cookie pairing going on at the Palace right now. And just eating like an entire box of Thin Mints last night in the dark in my kitchen made me think of, damn, we really need to try to make this Thin Mint stout.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a recipe I've seen attempted more than once.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the end of my comments.
But that's what I'm saying. Our production team could be the people to actually pull it off.
Yeah, we got the Sabro Northern Brewer Motueka hop combination. We got the vanilla clove star anise and cinnamon spice combination, all gently applied, tastefully applied. And then we would be totally remiss not to mention more unbelievably stellar work from Blanca Molina on these labels.
God. 2 labels this time.
Well, this is the thing, is Blanca, when you send Blanca a concept sheet and you're like, here's the deadline, we'd love a label by then. She's like, oh, here's 4 by like 3 weeks before that. And you're like, oh, awesome. And often there's no way, like in this case, these were the 2 labels that were sent, and Josh was just like, well, we're using both.
Yeah.
Like they were not going to say no to either of those. Those are both awesome looking.
Yeah.
Choose between the epic work because it's just too epic.
God,
Yeah.
and they look great side by
They
side.
really do.
Yeah.
They do. They were stacked on Instagram.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice work there, Fridge.
I had a fun time taking photos of these. Just in general, we don't generally have like black on our cans, so
Yeah.
it was fun to photograph.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for these to
she's
get out there in the
so
world.
good.
You guys think people are going to like see the long list of ingredients and then be like, it tastes too regular?
I don't know. I think it's got just the right amount of that something extra. Like you can tell there's spices in it, but it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
And
You're right. Like for the beer fan, the ex-craft cocktail bartender, such as myself, I'm like, yeah, this is really cool. But if I was trying to use this beer to like win over one of the beer skeptics in my life, where I'm like, you don't like beer, but like this is like a cocktail, like, they'd be like, this tastes like beer.
Or
"But
the people for whom taste like beer means something thicker these days, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'd be interested to see what I'd love to like put this in
Something more
front.
viscous?
Yeah, I'd love to put
Yeah.
this in front of Onyurit
Yeah.
or Christy Hubacher and be like, does this deliver what you're looking for in some of the more hyped stuff you've gone after? The other thing, like, and I would never do this because we only want you to drink responsibly here at HenHouse, but nice shot of agricole rum in this thing.
Ooh. Now we're talking.
Now I think it would taste exactly like a fucking zombie.
I was thinking a drop
Yeah.
of absinthe personally, but
Also here for that. You're getting the booze, the fusels, and a little bit of that anise character as well.
More than a little.
Yeah, that's fun. I like that idea. But yeah, good times and bad. People enjoy cocktails and beer, getting us all through it together.
bringing it back home. That's what I love about you, Bob.
Indeed.
Come get you. Tiki Tribute to Zombie.
Welcome to Sensory First, where we take a deeper dive under the hood of the beers at the HenHouse Brewing Company, exploring the ingredient utilization, the recipe creation, and the rationale behind the things we brew. We are talking about Tiki Tribute to the Zombie, our collaborative tart IPA with Flatland Brewing Company. I'm Bob from the marketing department, here with
Nick.
and
Zach Kelly.
The main garnish that most recipes could agree on was mint.
yeah.
So I thought throwing a little Northern Brewer in the whirlpool would hopefully lead to some mintiness. And then clove and star anise was kind of for like the bitters, to get some bitters aspect.
Yeah, you really did nail that, like that bitters aroma. It's totally there.
Yeah, and like originally I had so many more spices, and I was like, had to kind of keep myself back. Like, we're just trying to do beer here. It should just be bitters-esque,
Right.
not straight bitters. And then Motueka should be giving us some lime. Centennial should be giving us some orange, and Sabro is kind of like a pineapple. So, tropical fruit, lime, orange, It's kind of the goal, trying to get those flavors without adding those specific fruits. And then when you drink a cocktail with fruit juice in it, fruit juice is tart. It's sour. Orange juice is sour. Lime juice is particularly sour. So that's where the co-fermentation of the Sayre Vissier and the Conan, I wasn't really going for a sour IPA. I just thought maybe a little bit of tartness would lend to it tasting like fruit without actually having to put fruit in it. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I think that little bit of tartness contributes to the more cocktaily finish to this beer. And how were those yeasts playing together? I know sometimes Sayre Vissier can be a pill. Yeah, that's a polite way of putting it.
Yeah, the Conan doesn't seem to mind, even though that pH drops so far down in the beginning. And this was a 50-50 blend. And the ratio of Sayre Vissier to other yeast strain is not linear. It only takes a little bit more of another yeast to really get down the sourness.
Okay.
So even with that 50-50 blend, I think when we were doing weekly tastings on this beer, because it's so weird and we're not quite sure when it's going to go bad.
Totally.
So we're trying to get a baseline and go from there. And the first tasting we did on it, it took, about 10 minutes into the conversation of flavor to even for sour to come up.
Yeah.
But once you talk about it, it's there.
Yeah, you totally get it. This is definitely something that I think is great for anyone excited about a cocktail beer, but it's definitely more for the IPA drinker than the sour beer drinker. And I'm someone who likes both of those things, but I know lots of people who have a strong preference one way or the other. It's definitely more in IPA territory than sour beer territory in terms of acidity.
It should be. It's an IPA first,
absolutely,
and everything else second.
Yeah,
it's fun. I pulled a little bit of sour out first. I feel like depending on what you prefer, this could be the optical illusion of the spinning ballerina.
Yeah.
You close one eye and it switches directions.
Yeah. I love that. But yeah, it turned out really nice and it's really drinkable, which, as I often say, is not just a buzzword. That's a real thing. I could easily have 2 or 3 of these. And in terms of ABV, this is not a double IPA. We are not trying to destroy people. A zombie is a pretty fierce cocktail that's got frequently 3 ounces of spirit when most cocktails in the world are 2 ounces of spirit.
It's like dark rum, light rum, and 150.
And then 151, the overproof in there. There's only a handful of cocktails that are like that are just punishing. Where if I'm serving them as a bartender, I'm like, I've got a little sheet behind the bar and I'm like, all right, this guy's got 1. All right, that's their second. And I guess we're cutting them off now. But this is nice.
That's what cocktails are for.
Oh, absolutely.
Beer's not necessary. I tell people all the time, I drink beer because I'm thirsty and I don't want water.
Right.
Getting drunk is the side effect that happens.
Yeah.
When I drink cocktails, it's probably because I've got a goal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to be like, oh, this thing with 151. No. I just really like the flavor.
Yeah.
I don't want to get a buzz.
Yeah.
just drinking straight ethanol, practically. A little pineapple in there. Pineapple and ethanol. That's a good time. And this is an even better time. It is super complex without being annoying or losing that drinkability. You can still totally knock this back while you're talking to somebody, or you can really sit with it. And we do love this. Beers you can think about, but you don't have to, kind of thing. And I think that's a really fun thing this beer accomplishes.
There's 100%, as much as I hate it, there's a market for sour milkshake fruit IPA. Clearly,
that
people
there
are
is.
buying those. People are enjoying those. Many breweries are built on that, and they're doing just fine. I still to this day wonder, people that are buying those beers, how much are they actually drinking? Are you drinking a whole 4-pack? Are you buying a 4-pack and sharing it with your friends? And look at this crazy thing that blows your palate out and tastes like thick juice. I don't know, but that's not the goal here.
Yeah.
You still wanted an IPA that you could drink 2 or 4 of. If you buy the 4-pack, you should enjoy that whole 4-pack.
Exactly.
You're spending good money on it. That's money that you earned, that your life was spent making that money.
Right.
You should get everything out of it.
Yeah.
To that point, as far as those milkshake beers and beers like this, my theory is that maybe besides all the collectors that go and share them with everybody, I think they're really good entry points to beer.
Heck yeah.
When you're drinking something like this, that's this is a cocktail IPA. It's that light sourness cleanses the palate while you're drinking it.
Right.
It's something that people who know Bud Heavy don't know that this exists. They don't know that milkshake or that orange creamsicle beer exists. And when they do, all of a sudden they've opened up the door versus 10 years ago when every craft beer was extremely bitter and it really took a long time to get your palate adjusted.
Right.
And I find it hard to draw a connection between those like soured fruit milkshake IPAs and actual beer, because I personally don't think they taste like beer. And I'm sure that that's a gateway for some people, but I think this can be a really good gateway. I think even hazy IPA, I think sometimes can be a gateway to people that are like,
absolutely,
I don't like beer. I don't like craft beer. I only drink Coors Light. It's like, well, what's your idea behind that? When you think craft beer, what do you think? When you think IPA, what do you think? Because people say they don't like IPAs, and they're thinking bitter caramel malt.
Totally.
So
totally.
Yeah, I definitely like gateway beers, and I hope this could be one.
Yeah, and I truly believe that in 2022, there's a lot of I'm going to coin a term here, glop bros. There's going to be there's a lot of 23-year-olds pouring fun, tasty glop into their fun glop-focused glasses, and 2025, 2026, they're all drinking Vienna Lager. That's my prediction. Put that right there, and they're welcome to it. Glop
That
up now,
happens to
get crispy.
everyone.
Yeah,
I mean, when I started drinking beer, it was West Coast dippas.
right.
I wanted to blow my palate out and get hammered drunk. That's what you do when you're 21. I like a good banquet beer now.
Yeah, keeping it light
How
and
can I argue about Coors Light like on the daily basis?
right.
We're never gonna stop arguing about Coors Light.
No.
It depends on what you're trying to do. One serves a different purpose than the other.
I don't like caramel apple pops in my beer. Sorry.
That's why you drink Coors Light.
It's so green apple-y. So green
It
apple.
doesn't taste like anything. It tastes like fizzy water. It's
tastes like-
the original craft seltzer.
Tastes like green apple water.
The original craft seltzer
Green apple
is
flavored seltzer.
a great line. Yeah, I love that. We were just talking about this. Like, I really do feel that those big breweries have prepared everyone's palates for seltzer. They're like, every iteration of their flagships is a little bit less flavor, and then they're just like, yeah, now it's just water and bubbles and booze. There we go. We got everything out of it that may have gotten in your way.
It's a tool. It's the socket wrench of beer.
Yeah. But this is delightful and fun. I'm glad it didn't turn out overly spiced. I was also like, cocktail beer. Let's see how this one goes. But really nice.
Awesome job, Nick.
Yeah.
I was terrified that it was going to be gross, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's not, and I hope that
It'd be a different podcast.
that more
Yeah.
than just brewers think it's good. I hope the consumer, the haze bro, the glop bro,
Yeah.
also enjoy, and even the macro lager drinker.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that drink Coors Light and tiki drinks.
Yeah. Definitely.
Tiki drinks are fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a dream of mine is to open a tiki bar.
Really.
Yeah,
You should do that.
Me and Daniel Paddock have a whole business plan of buying a defunct brewery and filling the serving tanks with tiki drinks. And I'm gonna ruin our business plan, so I'm sorry, Daniel, but fill the serving tanks with tiki drinks and then serve them to make money, and then fire up the brewery and just brew old school beers that no one gives a shit about, but they'll drink after 6 tiki drinks because they don't give a shit what beer you give them.
Yeah. That's like their relaxing kind of come down beverage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like an IPA is a session tiki drink in terms of ABV.
Yeah,
You're
so
like, oh, this is only
an
like
English
7.5. This is
mild
fine.
And American Adjunct Lager. And
Don't even register.
Pale ale, people are just like, give me the beer at that point. And you're like, well, here is this well-crafted beer that I'm going to enjoy, and you're not going to give a shit about because you are 6 tiki drinks deep.
Yeah, and your palate is covered in burnt cinnamon and pineapple juice, which is a great place to be in. I love that. Shout out to the team at Flatland. Look forward to getting my hands on some more of their stuff. Cheers, y'all.
HenHouse Unruffled was created by Anna Scott. We record at HenHouse Brewing Company's Palace of Barrels in Petaluma, California. Our producer is Brian Henderson, and our associate producers are Josh Staples and Fridge. The music you've been listening to was written and performed by our San Francisco account rep McLean from his album Speechless and Speechless 2, which you can find on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and anywhere one finds dope music. If you have a question or comment about this or any episode of HenHouse Unruffled, please let us know by calling 707-347-9425 to leave a message. You can also send an email to podcast@henhousebrewing.com. For more information, visit www.henhousebrewing.com or stop by one of our Bay Area tasting rooms. The voice you've been listening to is Imani Russell Black. Please listen and drink responsibly.